Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and brothers and sisters from around the world. This is Rashad. I know biopics bend the truth. They push the disclaimer that it's based on a true story and it's not what actually happened. However, there's the truth, and then there's the whitewashing of FBA history. We'll find out this in this live stream edition of the movie Insurrectionist. Welcome to the movie Insurrectionist. I am your host, Rashad, and welcome to our channel. Before we begin, please keep yourself up to date with our latest videos, live streams, and events by pressing the subscribe button. Then like the video, share it, and follow us on X. Now, let's begin the insurrection. Sarah Richter, who was the subject of this movie, Sarah's Oil, inherited a parcel of land which was saturated with rich oil because of the Treaty of 1866 between the U.S. and the 5 civilized tribes. Being the daughter of a Creek freedman, she was granted this land by the state of Oklahoma, but of course, this led to crooks, suitors, and businessmen that wanted to take control of her land, even by using murder, theft, and intimidation. And as a side note, the Sarah Richter story was one, but not the only story that dealt with oil in Oklahoma from native lands. If you ever get a chance, check out the Martin Scorsese movie, The Killer of the Flower Moon, which deals with the Osage Nation. It's quite an interesting story about oil, self-hatred, and greed that takes place around the same time as this film, and it gives you a little insight in terms of what was happening in Oklahoma in the oil scene during that time. However, The Killers of the Flower Moon has a more historical accuracy and doesn't succumb to the white savior tropes that is seen in this picture. But maybe it's because the film was created by someone with no personal attachment to the FBA family. I want you to go ahead and take a look at your screen and pay attention to what it is that you see. Sarah's Oil. This is the director and writer of the movie Sarah's Oil. It was written by this fellow right here. His name is Cyrus Narasti, and he is the writer-director of Sarah's Oil. He did a couple of things that were problematic for this story. One was inserting white characters that never existed and diminishing the role of Sarah's father, who played an integral role in the harvesting of her oil fields. There seemed to be a lot of minority coalition building and intersectional tropes crowbarred into this picture, and it doesn't align with the actual story. This gentleman, if you haven't noticed, is Persian. He's a Persian American, and he was hired to write and direct this particular film. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying that because you are of a different nationality or different race that you cannot write stories from a different group. As Denzel Washington once said, can Martin Scorsese direct Schindler's List? Of course he could. Could Steven Spielberg direct Goodfellas? I would say you bet your sweet ass. But the difference is culture and understanding how certain nuances of that culture operates. We as black folks, we know, for example, for those of you women who are listening, what a hot comb smells like, what it feels like, the process it takes in order to heat it up, because we grew up doing those things. We understand about certain things that we eat during New Year's, like black eyed peas. Why? Because that is culture. The same exact thing with this gentleman here when it comes to the place where he comes from. And I do understand that with most filmmakers and with most biopics like this one, it's not going to be 100% accurate. Some of my favorite biopics, such as Malcolm X, Raging Bull, The Wolf of Wall Street, and Bloodsport. Shout out Frank Dukes for taking that L from Zane Frazier. Took major artistic liberties. However, after I researched Sarah Richter's life, there were definitely some material to tell her story without implementing all the propaganda that minimized the role of her father and adding non-existent white characters for a crossover appeal. I'm going to show you the trailer of this movie and highlight the relationship between Sarah and her guardian, played by Zachary Levi, and Sarah's played by Nyla Desire Johnson. But I'm going to play you this trailer so you can get an idea of what their relationship was supposedly like according to this movie. And then I'm going to show you the real relationship between them. So go ahead and watch this trailer. Fair use.
My name's Sarah Rector. The state gave me 160 acres on account of my ancestors. And there's all along.
Well, how do you know that?
God gave me the ears to hear it. Do you hear it, Blue? There's oceans down there.
Nobody but you, Lord.
I got it all on my land, and I'm looking for a partner to help me drill it out.
Bertrand Byron Smith, at your service. I look for oil, and I drill for it.
I was thinking 50-50.
We should have our lawyers meet. That's my lawyer, the Texas handshake. There ain't nothing more binding.
We're in Oklahoma.
It goes down.
Now this is Zachary Levi. He's playing a character by the name of Brett. Somebody is texting me right now. I'm not going to answer that. And Brett is actually based on her real life guardian. And as you can see, they kind of have a cordial, friendly relationship. He's supposed to be, I guess, the liberal white person in this story. And you have, of course, his Hispanic partner there to the right. Actor that was in Better Call Saul, who played Marco. In this, he's playing the right-hand man to Brett. And I'm not sure whether or not he was actually in the life of Sarah Rector at all, but we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Trouble for Okies. Here we go.
Nobody but you, Lord. Nobody but you.
What's the damage? Well, this might be the end of the road.
Dude, give him so easy.
What's your guess? Is he gonna do the right thing?
We shook hands.
You may have to speak to him.
I don't know what to say.
God'll give you the words.
We need money out of you.
But how are we gonna get him?
Hi, I'm Sarah, Bert's business partner. Has Bert properly presented our proposition, ma'am?
You said y'all need to put in there $1,000.
We need 2,000, and we need it today. It's a partnership.
Got some real nice mud here. Hoping you might test it first.
I've never seen anything like it. That field you're sitting on could be the richest in all Oklahoma.
When I was
I'll give you $20 an acre.
I ain't selling.
You want a war?
And there, of course, are the white supremacists, the hardcore racist that Brett literally says he's nothing like. And he says that in the movie a couple of times. He's not like that.
You taught me things about my soul. Ain't nobody ever done that for me. Ain't nobody ever cared.
We're dealing with some mighty devious folks over here.
The need to fight for what's ours.
Is that why I see dynamite?
That's my oil!
No, it ain't!
I would not do that if I was you. You took the liberty of wiring up your wells just in case you wanted to do something foolish.
It's funny. When the land had only weeds and lizards, it was all mine. But when people found out there was oil lines, they started thinking it's theirs. All I'm asking is to keep what's mine.
Her name is Sarah Rector, and you're going to be hearing a lot about her.
You know, I've grown kind of fond of the kid. That's called a knight.
It can hop over your pieces.
That's right. Look at you. You're learning.
Just want to make sure before I take your queen.
Really?
Nobody but
And there you have it. That is the trailer for this movie. So you see all sorts of things happening. You got Zachary Levi, of course, as the white liberal. Brett, who was based off of her real white guardian who was in charge of her money. But indeed, it seems like this story is where Sarah is being handled poorly by classic stereotypical bigots. And Brett, the Zachary Levi character, is a liberal or a good white person who's there to save her from all these bigots and do right by her. He's there to protect Sarah, according to this movie, and you see there in this trailer a little bit. And he even says multiple times that he's not like those racists. He literally says that all throughout the movie. I am not like them. I'm not like these racists. That's how he talks. Well, the truth about some people can hurt like a rhinoceros charging you in the ass. So with that said, let me introduce you to the true Brett and his real relationship with Sarah Richter. This is from the Black History X. Fair use.
1913, oil gushed from worthless dirt forced on Ciara Richter, an 11-year-old Greek freedman's daughter. Overnight, she was earning over $11,000 a month, equal to $360,000 today. America panicked. Oklahoma voided her deed. Kansas appointed banker T.J. Porter as her guardian. He in turn stole $24.8 million. Fact 1. The Worthless Land Trap, 1907. The Dawes Act forced Creek freedmen into the least fertile Oklahoma plots. Sarah's 160 acres were valued at $556, equal to $17,300 today. That was until 1911 oil strikes produced over 2,500 barrels per day, generating over $11,000 a month, equaling hundreds of thousands of dollars today. Fact 2. The Guardian Theft Scheme, 1913 to 1920. Guardian T.J. Porter.
T.J. Porter. So the man that Levi, that this guy right here was based off of, he was based off of this man right here, T.J. Porter. This was Sarah Richter's guardian, as a matter of fact. This was her guardian. And unlike what you see in the trailer, and if you get a chance to watch the movie, listen to what he actually did to Sarah. A lot different than what you actually see in the film. Fair use.
Stole $24.8 million at today's value over 7 years. $7.44 million.
I'll run that back in case you guys didn't hear it.
1913 to 1920. Guardian T.J. Porter stole $24.8 million at today's value over 7 years.
$28 million over 7 years. So he stole $28 million from Sarah Richter over 7 years. This guy here in the movie, who they present as being her friend, her ally, someone that was her benefactor that's going to protect her from the evil white supremacists, because he's not one of them. But in reality, he was just as bad as the rest of them. So they're kind of playing a joke on us when he says, and they write in this film, that I'm not like the rest of them. But the real person he was based on was like the rest of them. In fact, he was worse, because he stole all sorts of money from her over the course of 7 years. Let's continue.
$7.44 million were charged in fake fees. He was charging 25% of her income. $17.36 million were diverted in royalties. He built himself a mansion while her family lived in a $400 a month shack.
So he lived in a mansion while Sarah Richter's family lived in a shack. Money that he stole from her. Money he stole from her. Does that sound like a benefactor? Does that sound like a friend? Does it sound like somebody who is different than the rest of them? I don't know. He sounds like the same to me. Sounds like the same. Let's continue.
Fact 3. The White Reclassification Plot, 1913. The Kansas City Star petitioned to declare her white to seize control of her fortune. The headline, "Oil makes Piccini rich, must be saved from her own race."
Those of you who might be listening, you probably heard the word pickaninny. That is an old school term, old school racial epithet towards black children, pickaninny. Just like, for example, if you ever watched the movie Tales from the Hood, and the Corbin Burnson character who plays the would-be governor, he calls all the black dolls nigglets, which is another racial epithet. You don't really hear people talking this way, or at least openly anymore. So you may have white supremacists talking this way, and if they do, they're not doing it in front of us. But this was a time where they spoke this way openly about black people, and they called black children pickaninnies. But let's continue.
White women's clubs endorsed this moral rescue. Fact 4. The Bois counterstrike, 1914.
That is W.E.B. Du Bois when he was young.
W.E.B. Du Bois exposed Porter's $24.8 million theft in the crisis, forcing the NAACP's first wealth defense case. At 12, Sarah fired Porter in court, then hired black attorneys who recovered 40% of her stolen assets.
Whoa. This is something that they didn't show in the movie at all. They didn't show the fact that she actually got rid of her white guardian and got black attorneys to represent her. They didn't show that. They didn't show that W.E.B. Du Bois, in fact, was also involved, and the NAACP was involved in her case. Didn't really show much of that. They hinted at the NAACP being involved, but they didn't really elaborate how intricate they were in terms of getting the money that was stolen from her.
Fact 5. The $1.4 billion heist, 1920 to 2025. The systematic theft cost her lineage $1.4 billion.
All right. So there's a lot that we saw in that video, a little short clip right there, that was quite different from this trailer, quite different from the movie if you watch it. And this Brett character, who was based off of T.J. Porter, who was the real guardian of Sarah Richter, was not her friend, was not her benefactor. In fact, she used the NAACP to go after him because he stole all sorts of money from Sarah Richter. That's one thing that this movie doesn't tell you. And I find it very interesting that they changed him into this character who's an ally to black folks and Sarah Richter, when in fact his story was the man he was based off of was her adversary. He stole from her. And the only reason why she got her money back was because of black men like the lawyer she hired from the NAACP and, of course, W.E.B. Du Bois. W.E.B. Du Bois. But I do like to look at, when I did research for this, not just watch videos, but I also like to look at other research. Let's read a little bit about Sarah Richter, about her earlier life. I'm not going to read this entire article, but just some of it, so you get an idea, in fact, in terms of who she was, and we'll get the real story in terms of how her oil was extracted from the ground, and how was she able to go ahead and get all of this land for herself. So we'll go ahead and read this. It's from Wikipedia. It's not the full story, but it's a synopsis. That's why I chose it. So Sarah Richter, known as Sarah Richter Campbell or Sarah Campbell Crawford, March 3rd, 1902 through July 22nd, 1967, was an American oil magnate since childhood under the Treaty of 1866 due to the birthright of the black grandchild of Creek Indians born before the American Civil War. She received an allotment. It was surprisingly discovered to be an oil-rich and produced over $300, equivalent to $10,100 in 2024 per day. So she was known as the richest colored girl in the world. Earlier life and family. Sarah Richter, not gonna read that part. She had 5 siblings, which in the movie, they only show her having 1, which I didn't think was a big deal. Her parents were Rose McQueen and husband Joseph Richter, born in 1881, who were the grandchildren of Creek Indians before the Civil War and were descendants of the Muskogee Creek Nation after the Treaty of 1866. As such, they and their descendants were listed as freedmen on Dawes Roll, by which they were entitled to land allotments under the Treaty of 1866 made by the United States with the 5 civilized tribes. And if you don't know what the 5 civilized tribes were, the Cherokee, Chickasaw, the Creek, and also the Seminole Indians are all a part of the 5 civilized tribes. Sarah's father, Joseph, was the son of John Richter, a Creek freedman. John Richter's father, Benjamin McQueen, was enslaved by Rowley Grayson, who was a Creek Indian, for those of you who didn't know. So this myth that Black and Indians always got along in the past and during the Wild West is not always accurate. It's not always the case. There were many Indians who, in fact, owned Black folks. In fact, the Cherokee Indians, they were probably one of the largest slave owners in Oklahoma, and many of them fought in the Civil War to maintain slavery, which is one thing they don't teach in history books. But anyway, let's continue. John Richter's mother, Molly McQueen, was enslaved by the Muskogee Old Politeahola, who fought in the Seminole Wars and split with the tribes, moving his followers to Kansas. Sarah Richter was allotted 159.14 acres. This was a mandatory step in the process of integration of the Indian Territory with Oklahoma Territory to form what is now the state of Oklahoma. All right. Now, how does this relate to her in terms of oil wealth? Well, like I said before, she wasn't the only person that struck rich in terms of oil. You also had the Osage Nation who struck rich in oil, and there were you had white supremacists that plotted on them to kill them and take their land as well. And that's what the movie, the killers of the flower moon is all about. Let's continue with this. Oil striking wealth. The parcel allotted to Sarah Richter was located in Glenpool, 60 miles from where she and her family lived. The infertile soil was considered unsuitable for farming, with better land being reserved for white settlers and members of the tribe. The family lived simply, but not in poverty. However, the 30, equivalent to 1,000 in 2024 annual property tax on Sarah's parcel was such a burden that her father petitioned the Muskogee County Court to sell the land. His petition was denied because of certain restrictions placed on the land, so he was required to continue paying the taxes. To cover this expense, in February 1911, Joseph Richter leased Sarah's parcel to the Standard Oil Company. In 1913, the independent oil driller B.B. Jones built a gusher well with a daily yield of 250 barrels, of oil, and $300 equivalent to $10,100 in 2024 of income. The law at the time required full-blooded Indians, Black adults, and children who were citizens of the Indian Territory with significant property and money to be assigned well-respected white guardians. And that's where this man comes in, TJ, where he comes in. Thus, as soon as Sarah began to receive this windfall, there were pressure to change her guardianship from her parents to a local white resident and family acquaintance named TJ, or JT Porter. Her allotment subsequently became part of the Cushing Drim oil field. In October 1913, she received royalties of $11,567, so equivalent to about $368 today. As news of Richter's wealth spread worldwide, she received requests from loans, money gifts, and marriage proposals. That's one part, of course, didn't leave out. You had perverts showing up wanting to marry her, to take her away from all the hardship and death threats that was coming towards her and her family. Though she was only 11 years old. Due to her wealth in 1913, the Oklahoma legislature made an effort to have her declared an honorary white, allowing her the benefits of elevated social standing, such as riding first class on trains. In 1914, an African-American journal, the Chicago Defender, began to take an interest in Richter, just as rumor began that she was a white immigrant who was being kept in poverty. The newspaper published an article claiming mismanagement by the white guardians of her estate. This caused national African-American leaders Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois to become concerned about her welfare. In June 1914, a special agent of the National Association of the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, James C. Waters Jr., who actually was in the movie, sent a memo to Du Bois regarding her situation. Waters had been corresponding with the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the United States Children's Bureau over concerns regarding the mismanagement of Richter's estate. He wrote of her white financial guardian, who was this man right here, who they try to prop up as being her benefactor and someone who really cared for her and loved her, and she loved him at the end. And he said he wasn't like the other racist white folks. It is not possible to have her cared for in a decent manner by people of her own race instead of by a member of a race which would deny her and her kind the treatment accorded to a good dog. And this prompted Du Bois to establish the Children's Department of the NAACP, which investigated claims of white guardians who were suspected of depriving Black people of their land and wealth. Washington also intervened to help the Richter family. In October of that year, she enrolled in a children's boarding school at the Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, headed by Washington. Upon graduation, she attended the institution, and Richter was a millionaire by the time she was 18 in 1920. And she owned stocks, bonds, boarding schools, businesses, and 2,000 acres, piece of prime river bottom land. And at the time, she left Tuskegee, and her whole family moved to Kansas City, Missouri. She purchased a house on 12th Street. And of course, says here she was friends with Count Basie and Duke Ellington. And there's more and more you want to read more about her, but I'm not going to read the entire thing. So this video is actually quite accurate about what happened in Sarah Richter's life. But this trailer in this movie is quite inaccurate. Because this was the man that really was the villain in her real life story. But in here, they present him as being her benefactor. That is what they do. So for those of you who sit up and you try to tell us an intelligent Black society, you try to tell us, those of us that are B1, those of us that are from the soil, that who tells your stories don't matter, I beg to differ. It does matter. It matters tremendously. Now, I'm not saying that Chris Norostek, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I'm not saying that he did this maliciously, but the fact that he set up and he took this individual who was really the villain of the story, of her real life story, and turned him into an ally is quite irresponsible. There was enough rich text in her real life story that he did not have to do that. But for some reason he did. And that was quite the issue that I saw within this particular film when I watched it, was not only his particular character, but also some of the tropes of intersectionality where you had a lawyer who I'm not even sure existed, who was a feminist, and it was reflective of the progression era, which was around during that time. And the truth of the matter is, these things were not reflective in Sarah Richter's real life, or at least to this story, based on what I'm reading right here, based on the research. So it's a clear case of trying to create white saviors that didn't exist, trying to include everyone into our story. And this was a story about an FBA, foundational Black American girl from Oklahoma who became a millionaire before she was 18 years old. And you had these demons that were out there trying to steal everything that she got. Someone that was put in charge of her estate, who was supposed to be her guardian, tried to steal every single cent that was hers. And while her and her family were living in a little cabin, he was out there living in a mansion. And he stole all sorts of money from her. And the only reason why he didn't get away with it is because of the Black men of the NAACP. W.E.B. Du Bois, the lawyer she hired, and also, of course, Booker T. Washington. It's very interesting because the NAACP back then actually did stuff for Black Americans. Today, they don't. They find every excuse to try to sit up and fight for everybody else's issue except for ours. If it's an issue involving illegal immigrants, if it's an issue involving things involving the LGBTQ community, or if you want to abort your babies, the modern NAACP, they're there. But back during this time, they actually stood up for Black folks, and specifically Black Americans. But I digress. I only have just one question. Who is it that put their money behind this? It's somebody that specifically put their money behind this, that actually made this movie, and I would think that maybe they were not black, maybe they were not FBAs, maybe they didn't think that it really does matter who's telling your stories, particularly you're telling historical stories about us. Who is it who actually told this? Let me check and see. Oh, there it is. Everybody's favorite. Well, I'm not going to repeat what a lot of folks call them online. I'm not going to go there. And of course, Future's baby mama. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that? Shouldn't have said that. Ciara. They both got a big, huge smile on their face while they're watching the movie that they put their money behind, Sarah's Oil. And I'm not saying that they should not have made this film. That's not what I'm getting at. But my question, if I had a chance to talk to either one of them, is that did you guys actually ask who was going to write and direct this? Did you care or think about who should write and direct this? Or was your thought pattern was that it doesn't really matter? Because clearly, based on what I've researched, you guys or the person that wrote this, he made the villain into the hero. This is what he did. That is diabolical and unforgivable. But of course, some of y'all on here might disagree. You may think that I'm full of it. So I'm going to give some of you an opportunity to come in and call. If you go to the page into the description area, you will see the Zoom link. Please go ahead and click on it. I would love to talk to some of you who are actually listening. Anybody here is actually listening to this live. We can chop it up a little bit and talk about this movie and Sarah's Oil. And do you agree that representation does matter in terms of who is actually telling our stories? Do you agree that it actually does matter? Go ahead and call in. I'd like to hear from someone, and we can chop it up and talk a little bit more about this. This is the Movie Insurrectionist. If I don't get any callers, I'm going to go ahead and just pack it up. Hope somebody can see if anyone's calling in. Anybody's following along. Let's actually see. Anybody want to call in? seeing here if anybody actually wants to call in. We could talk about this and chop it up a little bit. Do you think that it matters who actually tells our stories, or if it's something that really don't matter at all? If it's something that really don't matter at all. There we go. I don't think anyone's going to call in, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. So the lesson that I want to bring out to you guys today is this, is that representation does matter. I do commend Russell Wilson and Ciara for putting their money where their mouth is and actually making a project about one of our stories. And we do need more celebrities and more of us actually doing it. But as you know, my attitude about many celebrities, a lot of them don't necessarily have the right mindset. In the case of these two, they didn't, because neither one of them actually vetted who was actually going to make the movie. But the intention was good. So that was the point of me actually putting out and doing this live stream, was to show and to prove that representation does indeed matter. And when people say that it doesn't matter, this is what happens. That's what happens when you have individuals who don't understand the culture, or they don't have the sensitivity to the culture to tell the story properly. And they're more concerned about identity politics. They're more concerned about trying to appeal to a large demographic of people, as opposed to telling the story the way that it should be told. That's the point of all this. So with that said, I'm going to close it out tonight. I am Rashad the Movie Insurrectionist. I want to thank everyone that listened and to this program. And thank you for your attention. So with that said, this is the Movie Insurrectionist. Please make sure that you subscribe, follow, and like and share our videos, and check us out on post for some of our upcoming events. So this is the Movie Insurrectionist, and remember, the theatrical release will never be televised.